Moon Knight dove deeper into a world of Egyptian gods on Wednesday as Episode 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe series landed on Disney+. Milkwood's London gift shop employee Stephen Grant, Oscar Isaac, faced the threat of cult leader Arthur Harrow, Ethan Hawke, who wields the power of trap goddess Ammit. This unpleasant deity judges people based on their past and future actions to determine if they're worthy of living, instantly sapping the life force of those she deems to be sinners or would-be sinners. Stephen also realized that he has another personality, the badass Marc Spector. This guy is capable of becoming the cloaked hero Moon Knight, and Stephen surrendered his body to Marc so he could fight off a monster summoned by Harrow. Let's step into Episode 2, Town, as Stephen Marc faces the consequences of his actions. This show takes place after the events of Avengers Endgame. The dapper Mr. Knight, fleeing Harrow's clutches once again, and knowing that his powers come from Egyptian moon god Khonshu, Stephen refuses to surrender his body to Marc. Instead, he conjures up a more dapper costume, one that includes a white suit and mask. It's probably good that they're magic, because they'd be impossible to keep clean. In the comics, this persona is known as Mr. Knight, and operates as an alternate personality for Moon Knight. He consults with police about crimes, and operates more like a subtle detective, rather than a violent vigilante, though he's capable of aggression too. The show's take suggests this look is a manifestation of Stephen's take on a hero, more suave and pristine than the down and dirty Marc. However, the inexperienced Stephen can't quite beat the jackal summoned by Harrow, a jackal only he can see, so he lets Marc take over to do the deed as Moon Knight. Unfortunately, Harrow still managed to get hold of the scarab that'll lead him to the place where Ammit is trapped. The episode ends with Marc waking up in Egyptian capital Cairo, looking out at the Great Pyramids on the Giza Plateau. Presumably Ammit is buried somewhere in the area. Meeting Marc earlier on, Stephen tracks down a storage locker maintained by his other persona. It's full of classic espionage essentials like cash and guns, along with a US passport for Marc Spector. Marc acts as the avatar for Egyptian moon god Khonshu, confirmed shortly afterward to be the scary giant bird mummy that hounded Stephen in his apartment building, becoming the superhero Moon Knight. "We protect the vulnerable and deliver Khonshu's justice to those who hurt them," says Marc. When Stephen is arrested by two police officers in Harrow's employ, they tell him that Marc was part of a mercenary team who attacked an Egyptian dig site and mercilessly killed the innocent archaeologists. It's likely that this incident mirrored the comics, in that Marc was disgusted by the brutality and turned on his team. After being mortally wounded by his former allies, Marc dies in front of a statue of Khonshu and is revived with a directive to serve as the Moon's Knight. MCU Khonshu also saved Marc from death, but now considers Marc's body his own. Getting to know Khonshu and Harrow, Harrow complicates the narrative by revealing that he was Khonshu's previous avatar. It's unclear exactly why they parted ways, but Harrow believes the moon god's judgment comes too late. He wants to resurrect Ammit, who judged people before evil is done, and create heaven on earth. He's pretty compelling and charismatic, even managing to use a fragment of Ammit's power to gather enough followers to turn a crime-ridden area of London around. It's now a super safe place for them to listen to Bob Dylan, learn Mandarin and make lentil soup. Stephen kinda pops his bubble by comparing Ammit's prejudgment to child murder, which is always the wrinkle with these Minority Report-style approaches to justice. They suggest we have no free will. The villain also notes that Khonshu chooses people with a strong moral conscience, and suggests that the god chose Marc because his mind would be so easy to break, or because it was broken already. He says the other gods banished Khonshu, but it's unclear why. In the comics, Harrow is totally different, and only ever appeared in one issue, back in 1985. He was a candidate for the Nobel Prize in Medicine due to his research into pain theory, but the scientist's work was built off experiments of Nazi scientists in the infamous Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II. He was also kidnapping local farmers to experiment on, which is all pretty awful. Despite this, Harrow was determined to use this work to cure his trigeminal neuralgia, a long-term pain disorder which paralyzed the left side of his face and left him with a permanent snarl. Horrifyingly enough, he also gets away at the end of the issue, apparently free to continue his experiments elsewhere. maybe send Moon Knight after this guy in a comic in the next 6 months, Marvel? Letting Layla in, this episode also introduces Layla El Fadli, Makelamai, a contact of Marc's that previously spoke to Steven on the phone. It turns out that she's Marc's wife, and they fought side by side to get the scarab. It would also seem that Marc subconsciously took elements of Layla's personality and interests when he created his Stephen Grant personality. Both have knowledge of hieroglyphic symbols, and each claims the French poet Marcellin Desbordes Valmore as their favorite. Desbordes Valmore lived from 1786 to 1859, and the poem they recite together is Les Separs apart. Do not write. I am sad, and I would like to die out, they say in French. The beautiful summers without you are the night without a torch. Marc may have retreated into Stephen out of guilt for his actions as a mercenary, and used aspects of Layla because he thinks she's worth aspiring to. Khonshu also wants Layla as his new avatar, and uses that as a threat to keep Marc under his power. Observations and Easter eggs. So far, the show hasn't named Marc's mental illness. In the comics, he suffers from dissociative identity disorder due to a childhood trauma. The credits suggest that viewers who want to learn more about these problems visit the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Layla refers to Ammit and Arthur. These are ancient Egyptian figurines designed to be placed in someone's tomb. It's likely Layla is the MCU version of Marlene Alron, Marc's wife and sometime partner in Moon Knight's vigilante activities. She's left him several times over the years due to Marc's dangerous lifestyle, and because comics are like a soap opera. This show hasn't had any major MCU connections or cameos in its first 2 episodes, but the GRC ad on the side of the bus scene during Stephen's fight with the Jackal is a reference to the Global Repatriation Council scene in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This group was responsible for reactivating citizenships, social security, healthcare and other resources for refugees displaced when billions of people suddenly returned in Avengers Endgame. Join us for another recap April 13, when episode 3 of Moon Knight hits Disney+. Moon Knight returns, and this time we learn a little more about Marc Spector and the double life Stephen has been living. It seems Layla is Marc's wife, but how that's possible in the wake of Stephen's life at the gift shop, along with how that's remained hidden for so long, is still unclear. That's especially true given Layla seems to be in the dark about Stephen's identity. However, the Egyptian influences are great to see, and the show certainly has a unique edge to it by diving into the fascinating African country's history. Having said that though, Moon Knight continues to struggle with its tone, which feels split between lighthearted Marvel quips and slapstick, alongside more bloody and visceral action. We've seen Deadpool pull this off, but the humor there was decidedly adult. Either way though, Moon Knight certainly has intrigue about it, and a good deal of positive press too. Roll on the next episode.